you know, my next book was called The Sex Squad. It's my next novel. I've been doing photo books and novels as I've been going along. And this was about when I was at the opera, you know, 100 years ago. I danced at the opera. I made my debut with Maria Callas. You might even know who that is. Very, very famous singer. And the dancers there, we used to do Aida, the big opera, Aida. We had practically no clothes on. Huge headdress and no clothes. And they used to do it on Christmas Day and New Year's Day. And the sets were so huge, they took the back of the opera house out. They had these enormous doors. And the sets were on the street. They were out on 7th Avenue, and they'd bring them in. So the temperature on the stage was the same temperature as outdoors, and it was usually about 0. So we would not go on stage until we had to. And we were called the Sex Squad, all these dancers with no clothes on. And we would stand in the hallways outside, you know, going into the wings of the stage. And then when it was time to go on, the stage manager would throw open the door and he'd yell down the hallway, "Sex Squad!" And then we would all run out and dance in that freezing weather, covered in goosebumps. Anyway, that's what that book was about. And then after that, my third novel was called Never Eat In. You know, my rules for a really good relationship is never eat in, never go in the bathroom together. Those are 2 major rules. And this is about a lady who discovers that her husband's been having an affair, and her son has a porn video, and she looks at it and discovers that she's fallen in love with the man in the porn video, and she actually meets him and falls in love with him, and they have a life together. That's how it goes on. So those were my first novels. And then, very recently, I did I Don't Kiss. I Don't Kiss is sort of semi-autobiographical. And it's about when I went to New York when I was 16. But I think, let me say this. When I was 16, it was right after the war. And 16-year-olds were like adults. I mean, my uncle and aunt paid no attention to me. I ran all over that city by myself. Nobody cared where I was or what I was doing. And this is about my adventures, really my adventures in New York and in the countryside where they had a home. Then my newest book is Love in the Loire. Love in the Loire is very interesting because Love in the Loire has the characters from Never Eat In and the characters from My Worst Day. They meet in the French countryside. And this boy is now an actor. He's in his middle 20s. And they meet there and they have a lot of adventures. And a lot of people like this book. I've done a number of other novels, and I also I've done some other books, but one of my big books is this book on Miami Beach called In the Spirit of Miami Beach. Been very successful. And reason I'm boring you to death with all of my stories is I have a new book, a new novel in the spring called Meaningless Hugs, Meaningless Kisses. It's about being gay over 70. And it's a very interesting subject to me because I will admit that I am over 70. And people think your life is over. You know, you're 65, you're getting old, you may live to be 95. What are you going to do with those last 30 years, a third of your life? You got to do something. And I am just here to tell you that people fall in love with you, and you have a sex life, and you're having fun, and you can do all the stuff that you didn't do earlier. You can have a great time. Really, you have to think, okay, where didn't I go? Who didn't I meet? What didn't I do? Because, you know, after 70, no one can ever say you ruined your life. You know, he had a lot of promise, but he ruined his life after 70. No one will ever say that. And, you know, now I've been living for 82 years. But after 80, you may do anything you like. You may run off to Madagascar with God knows who, and nobody will ever criticize you. So you're really free. It's great. Anyway, my new book, Meaningless Hugs, Meaningless Kisses, just finished it this week, and we're peddling it around New York, and it'll probably be out in the spring. And then I have a whole lot of other books I'm doing. The next book I'm going to do is How to Hit 70 Doing 100. And I'm going to pair that up, because that's like my book, How to Be Gay in the 21st Century. It's not a big book, it's a lot of pictures. And I'm going to pair that up with something called Sexercise at 70. Because I think a lot of people, you got to hang on to your body. You know, I always say you got to remain sleepable. And there's a lot of stuff you can do at home it's kind of easy, that kind of is really sexercises that people should be doing. This is men and women. I promise you, if you've got somebody you'd really like to sleep with, you'll be fine. I promise you, you'll be fine. And then last of all, I have a new public relations guy named Jose Lima, and he said I should do my autobiography. I don't know that I'm worthy of an autobiography or that interesting, but I'm going to do it anyway. And it's got a really good title. It's called, Is It Hot in Here or Is It Just Me? So I think that's, I don't know, I'm gonna have a lot of fun doing that book, and I'm gonna try to get that done this year also. So we got a lot of stuff going on. That's the news about yours truly. Thank you very much for sitting through this egomaniacal thing. All right? That's my dog barking. See you soon.